the years, MS TeamWorks has shared perspectives on MS from all members of the MS team. And although 2020 brought unexpected challenges, we were determined that a pandemic and social distancing would not stop us from sharing new and meaningful perspectives. The setting was different, but the message is the same. I have MS. I have a team. I have a future.
Hi, my name is Patty Bobrick, and I'm a physical therapist. I'm also an MS certified specialist. I currently work at Yampa Valley Medical Center, which is part of a larger healthcare organization, University of Colorado Health. I'm located in beautiful Steamboat Springs, Colorado, so I'm pretty fortunate. My role in taking care of individuals with MS is to do a thorough evaluation and to develop treatment strategies and treatment interventions that meet their specific needs and their specific goals. Education is a large part of what I do, so I do a lot of education on symptom management strategies. The nice thing is that I'm a part of a larger team. I work on a comprehensive team, so I get to support your entire medical plan as an individual living with MS, and that's always with the focus of living with health and wellness throughout your life. So to understand the mechanism of what's behind heat sensitivity in MS, let me give you just a little bit of background information. First of all, 60 to 80% of individuals who are living with MS have this symptom that they are heat sensitive. And it can be as little as an increase of 1/4 to 1/2 degree in your body temperature that can bring on additional symptoms. And where does this come from? Well, it can come from environmental heat. So you're out in the hot weather, it's humid, or things like you're exercising and you're generating internal body heat, which increases that temperature again. It can also come from things like infections. Urinary tract infections are very common in MS. And so you might run a slight fever and therefore you're exposed to more heat and then you get more symptoms when you're exposed to heat. And it doesn't have to be just a urinary tract infection, a tooth abscess, a cut that's infected, anything that might increase your body temperature exposes you to a larger heat source and can increase your symptoms. What we think we know about the mechanism is that we do know that in a nervous system that isn't impaired by MS, that has myelinated fibers, that when you heat that system up, the transmission is actually sped up. So those axons are getting impulses and they're having to deal with them at a much faster rate. Well, when you have MS and you have axons that are unmyelinated or might be impaired or transected because of the disease, that when you put a larger demand on that system, it's depleted faster. So it's like kind of pouring all of the water out of the cup all at once and there's no reserves. Well, when you have no reserves, then your symptoms are going to pop through because those messages aren't getting to the parts of the body that they need to. And it might be fatigue, it might be weakness, sensory symptoms, vision, pretty much anything that is lying under the surface or that you feel on a day-to-day basis, but will be accentuated because you're exposed to the heat. So the idea of does heat actually cause an exacerbation is a question that I frequently get because it feels like an exacerbation. All your symptoms are worse or select symptoms are worse or that you have new symptoms that you didn't have before. And what you have to do is make the distinction between disease activity, which is when those immune cells come into your central nervous system and do damage to the myelin and the axons. That's the disease activity, and that's an exacerbation. When you overheat, what you're doing is you're increasing your symptoms. So there's the disease and then there's symptoms. So what happens with heat is that you're increasing your symptoms, but not making your disease worse. And we often call those pseudo-exacerbations, that they feel like an exacerbation, but truly they don't make your disease worse. So that's important to know. There are many of our life activities that are important to us and that we want to participate in. And when you're living with MS, being able to be proactive to attend an activity or an event that's important to you and be able to participate well requires a lot of planning and forethought if you want to be able to do it and do it well and have an enjoyable time. And that's what it's all about. So if you can think, let's take the example of you want to attend a family picnic. So you call your sister up to find out, well, where is this going to be held? Is it indoors or outdoors? If it's indoors, is there air conditioning there? Will I be able to find a cool place to sit down and rest? And will I be part of the activity? Or will we be out in the middle of a field and it's going to be 90 degrees with 90% humidity out there? Is there any shade? So that will give you information about how you need to prepare. You might take a cooler with you so that you have a lot of cold drinks available to you, that you take an umbrella so that you can sit in the shade and that you have a chair there, so that you kind of go through what you might need through the day, particularly if you're exposed to the heat, so that you're prepared and that you're not kind of chasing this ability to kind of try to cool down when you're already hot. It's much easier to be proactive and cool yourself prior than to try to cool yourself down after you've overheated. A lot of people will have more symptoms and they have to leave the event, which is really, sad to me that if there were some cooling strategies in place, it might have been a much different day. One thing to keep in mind that I kind of harp on is that staying well hydrated is really, really important. If you're not well hydrated, you can't cool yourself down. So drinking lots of cool fluid is really important in any case. There are a whole line of cooling products that can be used as kind of these tools in your toolbox to help yourself be cool. I say that there's a lot of cool products out there, cooling products out there. Certainly, if you're just looking at your environment, air conditioning, cooling fans, those are all really important to keep you cool. But even products that mattress overlays and cooling pillows, so that if you're somebody who has a tendency to overheat during the night while you're sleeping, these can kind of help pull the heat out of your body as you're sleeping so you can wake up cooler. Certainly things like if you're going to be swimming, having the pool water less than 85 degrees. There has to be enough of a difference between your body temperature and the temperature of the water so that your heat can be dissipated in the water. If that water temperature is close to your body temperature, then you're going to hold your heat in and you won't have the ability to kind of get rid of that heat. Cooling vests we're very well familiar with. There are types that you put ice packs in. There are types that you wet, and as it evaporates, it pulls the heat out of your body. But there's some really neat little things that, these are generally for women, but cooling products that are they look like jewelry. So there's a product called Cool Pearls that you can put in the freezer or the refrigerator, and it looks like a necklace, and pull it out and you can wear it. It looks like a piece of jewelry, but yet you can kind of keep that on you, and that's your cooling product, as well as bracelets like that. So there's some really neat products out there that don't look like big bulky cooling vests that can really keep you cool and make you look cool at the same time. When you're living in a high humidity climate, there's some special considerations to think about. Just as some background information, individuals living with MS, a good majority of them have an altered sweat response. And our sweat response is one of our automatic ways our body keeps us cool. So we perspire, there's moisture on our skin, air flows by, that evaporates, and that pulls heat out of our body. So that's our own body's internal mechanism to do that without us having to think about it. But if you're living in a really high humidity climate, and I lived in Florida for many years, so I can speak to this firsthand, is that when the air is saturated with water, that using a cooling product that is an evaporative product versus those ones that are ice packs, it's a little harder for that moisture to be pulled out of the vest or out of the product in order to kind of pull the heat out of your body. So you kind of end up just wet and soggy and warm. So you might look at some things that are more ice pack related, or some of the other things that I mentioned. Another thing that is there was a research study to say that taking a cool shower gives you about 30 to 60 minutes of better exercise performance because you pre-cooled your body. So you can use that as a strategy in a high humidity climate if you're out and about and you need to be in the heat and humidity. So, as a person with MS begins to overheat, they may notice some subtle signs of their symptoms changing. And I usually educate or tell people to, pay close attention. How are you feeling and not brush the symptoms off? So, a lot of times folks can tell me that, I know that I'm starting to overheat because my vision gets a little bit blurry, or I get some sensory symptoms in my fingertips. No big deal, but I just feel like they're worsening. Those may be your red flags, and those red flags are assigned to you to be more proactive in your cooling if you've already done some cooling strategies to amp it up a little bit, or to really initiate those cooling strategies before you kind of go down the rabbit hole and all of your symptoms kind of flare up and you're dealing with a lot more than you have to. So kind of paying close attention and being aware of what your red flag might be. It could be different for everybody, but it might help you. It might give you some information about, oh yeah, I got to get on the job and drink some more cold water, or I need to put my cooling vest on. I have a really lovely, sweet story about a successful patient who managed their heat really well. She's an elementary school teacher. She teaches first grade, so she's got the little ones. And part of her job responsibilities was to do playground duty a couple afternoons during lunch. And she lived in Florida, and inevitably she would get overheated on the playground, and it made for a really tough afternoon for her because for her vision got blurry, so she wasn't seeing as well, and cognitively she just became just a little bit slower. Her processing speed declined, and so she kind of felt overwhelmed in the afternoon with these symptoms that were caused from the heat. So we had met and we had talked a lot about what was available to her and what cooling products might work for her. And one of her concerns was that, wearing a cooling vest might look like a barrier between her and her children, and that was important to her. So her mom was an excellent seamstress, and what they did was they got all these fun fabrics, all these children's prints and holiday prints, and her mom developed a pattern for a vest, and they sewed pockets inside so she could put her cold packs inside this vest. And it became a daily thing with her children, like which vest is our teacher going to wear today and what fun characters are there going to be on there. So she was able to stay cool and was very successful in keeping her body temperature down, and yet it was another connection for her and her children in her classroom, and certainly not a barrier at all. So that was definitely a win-win on all parts. I think the main thing that I'd like folks to take away from this video is that if something's important to you and you want to attend an event, you want to do a particular activity, and heat seems to be the barrier for you, that with some good planning, with some good strategies, with some forethought, that it can be a very productive, very enjoyable experience for you. And when you do that pre-planning, you feel empowered. You feel like, hey, I've got this. I don't have to worry that in the middle of this activity that I'm going to have to leave because I'm not feeling well or my symptoms have increased. So it's about living life to the fullest. And it might seem a small thing in the big scheme of what you're dealing with MS, but if there's anything that you can do to kind of keep your symptoms at bay and keep them quieter and allow you to enjoy the things that are important to you, then that's what I want you to do for your life.